So in a recent video, I shared my 3 favorite woods for beginner woodworking projects. Those being knotty alder, poplar, and oak, red oak or white oak. This is red oak. In this video, what I want to do is share with you a very dead simple, easy to complete woodworking project that'll be useful in your home or as a gift to someone else. So why dead simple? Because planning sometimes can get you stuck, and too much planning, a project that's too complicated, just takes too much time to complete. And anyway, what I've found is that I don't end up doing it. So what I want to do is I want to share with you a dead simple couple of cuts that only requires a table saw, a job site saw, track saw, or maybe a compound miter saw just for cross cuts. We're only going to be doing rip cuts and cross cuts in this project. And when it comes to finishing, as you saw in the thumbnail, why be bland when you can have fun with stuff? So I'm going to show you how I got that crazy trippy green that you saw in the thumbnail. So I hope you'll stick with me. It's a dead simple project. Hi there. Let me jump in real quick with a message from today's sponsor. That would be me. So I don't do affiliates, I'm not sponsored, I don't have tool deals, and I don't really want to do memberships on this channel. So the 3 things I need from you to keep this channel open the way it is now are for you to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and watch till the end. Those 3 things, that's all I need to keep making content. So back to the video. In this video, I'm going to be using this poplar board that, as I mentioned in my last video, this is that funky green wood you find at the hardwood dealer. I'm not using it because it's green, I'm using it because it's misbehaving, and I want to show you what I mean. So I'm going to move these other 2 boards out of the way for now. So when I bought this board, it was nice and straight and true, and in the recent video I mentioned, I showed you how to check that by basically sighting down the long edges of the board to look for curls, curves, cups, twists, basically anywhere where the board moves. This board, when I bought it, was nice and straight. It's been in my shop for a few weeks now, and that's right, just moving it around caused it to twist quite a bit. So we're going to use this board in today's dead simple project build. So there's all kinds of different types of cuts that you'll see and types of surfacing at your local hardwood lumber yard. In this case, this one's been surfaced on 3 sides. This edge, this face, but this one's been left rough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this in my offcuts, so I don't really even have to worry about truing this board up. With what we're making today, we're going to use glue and clamps to make it fit the shape that we want, and this will end up in the scrap bin, so there's minimal sanding. Really, when we're done, all I'm going to do is sand the edges just to break them and make them feel a little better to the touch, and that's it. So my recommendation would be not to sand these edges until you get the thing glued together, because there are some edges that don't need sanding, and why sand something that doesn't need sanding? So let's get into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 cuts in this board. The first cut's going to establish the back piece that'll mount to the wall. The middle piece is going to be where the picture frames can sit when you put your picture frames on the shelf. And then the last piece is going to be about a 1-inch tall lip just to keep the picture frames from sliding off the shelf. So this is such a simple plan, it doesn't even really require any type of build plans or instructions. In this case, this board is 49 inches long, so I'll probably take it over to the crosscut saw, and I'll show you. What I'll do is I'll trim off one end so we got a nice end, then I'll measure 48 inches, cut off the other end before I make my rip cuts. That way all of our boards are the same length, we've got a 48-inch long shelf, and that should come together nicely. So let's move over to the crosscut saw and make that cut real quick. So when you're making a crosscut on a board that's as twisted as this one, you really want to be careful, because if this board moves around while the saw blade's passing through it, the blade can get pinched in it, and it'll either shove the saw back at you, which can be a little scary, or it can burn the wood or bind up the blade. Anyway, it's just bad stuff. So what you want to do is make sure that your board is laying flat here where the cut's going to happen, not back there on the table where we don't really care. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my hand here to hold this board down while I establish just a clean cut. I'm just going to take a little bit off just to make sure that I've got a nice perpendicular cut to the back edge. All right, so I want to take just a minute to point something out. I think this happens on pretty much all crosscut saws, or at least the ones that I've owned in the past. You notice there's a lot more sawdust here. That was really a mess, and it really shouldn't be this way. I've been using this a lot lately, and so I can notice that the dust chute is actually completely plugged with wood fiber. And that's why it's not functioning the way it's supposed to. All right, so what I'm going to do, I mentioned earlier that this is such a simple project that it doesn't even require a build plan of any kind. So what I'm going to do is I'm keeping my nice factory edge against the fence. Here's our rough edge that never got any love at the sawmill. And I'm going to measure my board just to see how wide it is. In this case, this particular board is 7 inches, just over 7 1/8. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of this ugly side. So I'm going to move my fence over to 7 inches, make a very, very small pass just to clean this edge up. And then I'm going to move the saw to 3 inches and make a rip cut to create the back part that will go against the wall. Then I'll make another 2-inch cut that will give us the bottom of the tray that the picture frames will sit in. And then what's left will be our 1-inch keeper strip on the front that will keep the picture frames from sliding off. So I'm going to go ahead and make all those cuts now, and I'll get back to you in just a second. All right, so we've got our 3 boards cut up, and I oriented the camera like this so I could show you. This board is still just really misbehaving badly. Fortunately for us, we have clamps. We're going to make it do our will. So, pretty easy layout. We're just going to stand this back board up. This is the board you're going to drill holes in. I would not drill the holes now. I would wait until you decide where you're going to put it. Find the studs in your house. You can also use wall anchors for something like this, depending on where you are regionally. So I would drill the holes after you're done and put the mounting screws in it. But essentially we're going to put this up like this. Here's our front lip for keeping the picture frames from coming off the shelf. And as you can see, this thing is all sorts of misbehaving. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use glue. I'm not going to use any brad nails or screws or anything else. You could if you want to. I don't see the need. It's not going to hold more than 1.5 pounds worth of picture frames ever, so you don't need to overbuild it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some glue along these edges. I'm going to put it together. I'm going to hold this down flat against my work surface over here and get a good clamp on it. And then I'm going to push this one down to get this twist out of it and put the other end together and glue that. So here we go. Let's put it together. I'm using this white tight bond glue. It doesn't really matter. This is what I could put my hands on. So if you want, you could use this kind of glue, or you could use tight bond 2. Really, any wood glue is going to work here. All right, so we're going to stand it up, and get it into position. I'm going to work on this end down here just to get the ends lined up. Don't have to apply a ton of clamping pressure here. Once we get the joint together, that's really all we need, minus the glue all over your hands. You can see how much this came apart down here. This piece of poplar really did misbehave coming home from the store. Look at that. You can actually see just how bent up it wants to be. The clamps are a little rusty. All right, there we go. Now I'm just going to do a couple others. You can probably can see in here that this is like wanting to open up a little bit. So just to tighten up that joint, I'm just going to throw a couple of, I'm going to put them on the underside. Just a couple of clamps there to pull that joint together and make it a little bit tighter. Now if you want, you can go through here and get rid of any squeeze out that you got going on. I don't really have too much in there to worry about. So there we go. As I mentioned, I didn't sand any of the edges because these inside edges under here, they don't need to be sanded. So what we're going to do is let this dry, let this glue set for about an hour. Probably don't have to go that long. Then we'll take the clamps off and give it a good sanding on some of these edges just to break them over. And then we'll have some fun with finish. So hope you'll stick with me. So with this piece, I'm going to have a little fun with it and do a bit of a guitar builder's finish on it. So I'm no luthier, although I do like the idea of building musical instruments as a woodworker. It's complex and beautiful and something really cool. Topic for another day. Anyway, so I'm going to use Aqua Coat. This is a clear wood grain filler that can be tinted. I'm going to tint it with some black liquid tint, stir it together. It's kind of thick like a peanut butter, so I'm just going to smear it on the project with a gloved hand. And then I'll let that dry, and then I'm going to sand that back as much as I can, and then we're going to have some fun with some emerald green RIT dye. So that's what will come after this. So the purpose of this is to actually push the black tint into the pores of the wood to accentuate the black grain a little bit. Just poplar can be kind of plain looking, and I want to kind of have some fun with it. So hopefully this wood filler will, with the black, will fill the grain, we'll sand it back so it's mostly poplar like this again, but then the grain will actually be black, and then we'll put the green dye right on top of it. So probably just going to turn on some music and mute the camera, and we'll get this done. So here we go. All right, there we go. It's all nice and black and ugly. I didn't bother doing the back because that goes against the wall. So this is all dry now. What I'm going to do is sand it back to basically almost back to the poplar finish, and then we'll move on to having some fun with some emerald green RIT dye. So back to the music. Now with something like this, this is a creative project now. This is an art project. You're not going for how evenly can I get the finish applied. It's up to you to decide what something like this looks like. I'm just having fun and goofing off, showing you some of the different things that you can do and encouraging you to get creative with your wood. You don't always have to be a traditional woodworker and stain everything and paint everything. Have some fun with it. So speaking of fun, let's throw in some green. All right, so for this picture frame shelf, I'm going to use emerald green RIT dye. This is just basic RIT dye. You can buy this at any hobby store, craft store, Walmart, Target, all over the place. It's just water-based. It is very color intensive, so wear protective equipment when you use this. I'm just going to apply it directly to the wood. I'm going to scrub it in with a white scrubby. This is just an ultra fine, like Scotch-Brite pad. And I'm going to let that sit for a few minutes. I'm going to wipe off all the excess with shop rags. I'll let it dry for about an hour, and then I'm going to apply a couple of coats of, this is a water-based top coat. I'm not promoting General Finishes or anybody else's finish. I'm not sponsored. It's just what I have on hand that's flat. And that's what I wanted for this, was something that was flat. I don't want it to be too shiny on the wall. So back to the music, and I'm just going to finish this out, and then I'll come back when it's all done. So there you go, a project you could complete in probably one day and get on the wall and have it done and in the bag. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you stuck with me this long, I really appreciate you. Not very many people do. So that's it for me, friends. Till next time, peace, love, and sawdust. I'm out.